Mr. Reddit
TIFU by almost freezing to death cause I chose the wrong station, So I am college student at a college which is in middle of nowhere. The closest city is about an hour out from the campus. Coming back to college from home, I decided to take the train for the first time ever. I had two stations to choose from, either the one in the city or one in a nearby town 25 minutes away from campus. I naively thought the town station is much closer, and I'd just Uber to campus like I usually do. I got off the train at the station at around 9 p.m. It was freezing and below 32 at that time. While I was wearing a jacket, that was all I had on at that point. I tried booking an Uber which was around $30. I waited for 30 minutes for the first one, but no one ever picked it. This train station was more like a bus station with just a bench. There was literally no one nearby at this point. All the stores are closed, and the people getting off are all gone. Now I am standing there freezing my butt off waiting for someone to pick me. At this point, I went ahead and booked a ride on every ride-sharing app. No one picked me up for another hour. It was now close to 11 p.m. and had only gotten colder. I was now cuddled against the bench side trying to get as much warmth as possible. I was now really panicking and cold. It felt like my brain had basically given up. I had tried everything. Calling taxis, shouting, running, but no heed. By now I had a $300 hold on my account from all the rides I had tried to book. It was now midnight. It felt like my body was giving up. I was sobbing in a corner, huddled in a sack with my backpack holding on to my phone for dear life. If it was a miracle or what, but suddenly I decided to call the cops. I told them the entire story. The operator on the line was amazing. She was so nice and kept me conscious till I was picked up by the officer and taken to the station. The police then helped me get a ride back to my apartment. I'm still trying to get over what happened, so hopefully writing this out will help.
History 2
TIFU by getting high and eating an entire rotisserie chicken. To cut to the chase, I'm a massive stoner, and a friend of mine had paid me in a freshly rolled joint for driving them to work after their car broke down, so I was pretty excited to try their stuff. I got nice and comfy on the couch and lit up. It was certainly different than what I usually get. Hit me like a semi-truck and had to put it out after a few hits. A few minutes in and I'm realizing I'm way higher than I thought I would be, but it's okay. I don't have any responsibilities in the morning, and I can just play games until I sleep it off. A few hours and some decimated chip bags later, and my gremlin ass is still hungry. So I check my fridge to see what's up. I see it a small, whole rotisserie chicken that I bought earlier to shred up for meal prep stuff, and in that moment some ancient lizard part of my brain activates. That chicken looks pretty damn good. So I pull it out of the fridge. My initial plan was to reheat it in my air fryer, but it didn't fit. It's a small air fryer, so I thought, okay, if I just break it up and reheat it in pieces, that should work. So I start breaking it apart with my hands, but as I'm doing so the lizard brain turns on again. Just go for it. And me couldn't stop lizard brain. So there I was, standing shirtless in my kitchen and eating cold rotisserie chicken with my bare hands like a feral animal. And then the second actor in this story come in, my cat. She's a gremlin and the spawn of Satan, but I love her dearly. Now if anyone owns cats, or pets in general I guess, then you know no matter how much you feed and take care of them, if you're eating food they deem tasty they'll stop at nothing to get to it. So I'm in my lizard/zoo to the moon brain eating an entire rotisserie chicken by hand when my cat sprints out of nowhere, leaps onto the counter, grabs part of a wing I had torn off, and sprints away. I immediately try and run after her, but I'm higher than the International Space Station right now, and putting one foot in front of the other is serving to be a bit of a challenge. So I'm chasing her around my apartment telling her no. You get back here. Give me that. Etc. while also crashing and banging into every wall, corner, and piece of furniture imaginable. At some point I trip and slam my face to the ground. Eventually I catch her, pull the wing out of her mouth, and take a moment to breathe. And now we begin Act 3, the police. They knock on my door and immediately I'm wondering if something is going on outside or if they're here for any other reason than what just happened. I'm high as shit and just answer the door. I'm sure what the police weren't expecting was a shirtless man, with his mouth covered in chicken grease like a toddler eating spaghetti, holding a very sad cat. They ask me if everything's alright in here, and I respond so eloquently with, "Yeah, everything's good, my cat just ate my chicken." They chuckle a bit and explained that apparently while I was chasing my cat around my apartment, what my neighbors heard was a lot of banging and screaming, what seemed to be a domestic dispute. So they called the police. I assured them I live alone with my cat and she's fine, and they tell me to keep it down and have a good night. Thought I'd share this story with the world since my friends all thought it was hilarious.
History 3.
TIFU by consuming an entire bag of Walmart corn and discovering my body's impressive talent for food preservation. I was digging around in the back of my freezer looking for some chicken nuggets or something when I discovered a bag of Walmart corn that had been chilling there since God knows when. The bag was a bit frosty, and the price tag had faded to the point where it was just a white rectangle. But corn doesn't go bad when frozen, right? Right? Anyway, instead of doing the reasonable thing and portioning it out like a normal human being, my genius self decided, well, it's just corn, and dumped the entire 32-ounce bag into a bowl. Added some butter, a bit of salt, and went to town while watching some Netflix. It wasn't until I was scraping the bottom of the bowl that I realized I had just consumed 2 entire pounds of raw corn. Fast forward to 3 a.m., and my stomach is making noises that I can only describe as what you'd hear if you put a rubber duck in a blender. The bloating was so bad, I look 6 months pregnant. I'm a dude. But the real fun began this morning. Without going into graphic detail, let's just say I learned that my digestive system is remarkably inefficient at processing large quantities of corn. Also learned that corn maintains its structural integrity through pretty much anything. It's like my body just decided to vacuum seal each kernel for preservation. I've now spent roughly 40 minutes total in the bathroom, questioning my life choices and wondering if I'm secretly part corn now.
History 4.
TIFU by giving one of my students a ride home. So, this happened about 8 years ago. I was a junior high teacher at the time. I'd built a rapport with most of my students and their parents and had come to respect them, and they me. Well, one day, as I was finishing up in my classroom, grading papers, going over the next day's lesson, etc., a female student came in and told me that she'd missed the bus and that her parents wouldn't be able to pick her up for another hour at least, and that she didn't really have any other family that she could rely on to give her a ride home, and her friend wasn't answering her phone. I called her parents to let them know the situation, and they told me it would be all right with them if I gave her a ride home this one time. I called my wife and let her know why I'd be late and proceeded to take the student to her house, and I went home immediately afterwards. Fast forward about 3 days later, and I was called in by the principal, and he and the superintendent sat me down and told me that what I'd done was against school policy and that it was highly inappropriate and sets a dangerous precedent, or some nonsense like that. I told them that I had called her parents, and they said it was okay. That, however, didn't seem to matter because I didn't have any proof besides my word, and they suspended me for 2 weeks pending investigation. Well, that didn't sit well with either myself or my wife, so I all but begged to come back, and they decided to bring me back, but the investigation would still continue. Cut to about a week and a half later, and they told me that because what I did was, technically, against school policy, they had grounds to fire me, so they did. I finished up the semester and left on good standing with my students and my colleagues. I don't blame the student because the circumstances that led to her situation were out of her control, but I do suppose I should have thought of a different way to handle it. Either way, I did get a pretty decent severance package, so I suppose there's that. I also asked a lawyer if I had a decent case for wrongful termination, but he said that even if I did, it would cost more than it's worth to pursue. So, if I had to attribute a lesson to all of this, it would probably be that no good deed goes unpunished, and that there are always those who will judge before they get all of the information.
History 5.
TIFU by accidentally convincing my roommate we're getting married. Alright, so a little backstory for context. I moved in with my roommate about a year ago, cause the rent in this city is ridiculous, and finding a decent roommate was like winning the Hunger Games. We click super fast, same sense of humor, same obsession with Thai takeout, and somehow, we never fight about cleaning. A miracle, honestly. Last night, we were chilling on the couch, watching this cringe rom-com. One of those friends to lovers plots where everyone knows they're gonna end up together except them. I was feeling extra goofy and blurted out, "Yo, we should just get married. Like, why are we wasting time?" He laughed, so I thought it was just a vibe. Like platonic banter, you know? Fast forward to this morning, I'm half asleep in my hoodie, face deep in coffee, and he walks in with the most serious expression holding a bread twist tie. My guy had turned it into a ring. He goes, "So, were you serious last night?" I nearly choked on my coffee. "Like, sir, what?" I thought we were joking. My brain just blue screened while he stood there all hopeful. I panicked, laughed it off, and mumbled something about needing a real diamond if we were gonna do this right. Now I'm low-key avoiding him cause IDK if he's embarrassed, mad, or planning our wedding. It's awkward AF.
History 6.
TIFU by creating an alter ego as a bit, and this alter ego now shows up on my credit report and background check. So, technically was not today, but today was the day I realized how extensive the issue is. To back up about 10 years, I created this fake persona as a joke to fuck with my boss at the time, who had a good sense of humor but insanely gullible. He was frantically trying to hire for a sales position and wasn't getting any applicants and said I'd hire about anyone right now, so I said okay. I created this ridiculously outlandish but believable resume with a bunch of funny titles and job responsibilities for this southern redneck named Ricky, who was the assistant to the VP of local janitorial operations at Chuck E. Cheese. A semi-retired rock star who liked to play at the bars, and an ex-pit stop mechanic for Dale back in the day. I created a whole crazy backstory on a cover letter and applied for the job, but made it sound almost believable. I even went as far as to trim my beard down to a Hulk Hogan stache, and I have this mullet wig I used for a Joe Dirt costume in middle school, and sent him an email a few days after applying with a really cringe candid headshot my girlfriend at the time took, and sent it to him. In the emails, told him I was gonna roll up to the office soon on the spot for an interview because he would have been stupid not to hire me. He had no idea it was me, so I started fucking with him even more and calling his office phone doing my deep southern accent. Not hard because I grew up in the South and have an accent in me, so I basically drop my voice an octave and do a Blake Shelton impression, haha. And telling him I was ready to work, and he was mildly concerned this weirdo was going to show up one day. I told absolutely nobody I was doing this, and was dying hearing him talk to colleagues about this weird dude who keeps calling him. Then, on a Friday before a holiday, I came into the office with a wig, stache, jean jacket, my boots, and an Ozzy Osbourne shirt I found at Goodwill, and kept in character for most of the day. The rest of the company found out about this and thought it was the funniest thing ever, as did my friends and family. So it became kind of a bit, and evolved into this redneck alter ego thing. We had this office that was repurposed as a storage room nobody went into, and they put a nameplate on the door for Ricky, and from what I understand that was Ricky's office for several years even after I left. From there I created a Facebook page, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, etc. over a period of several years. I just post stupid shit here and there like crazy redneck stories he had in horrendous grammar, random YouTube videos, and just random stuff. It's become like a lore at this point, and I've just kept it going because I've had fun with it. My friends will contact me and say, "What's old slick Rick been getting into these days?" And I got really proficient at Photoshop, so I'd put him into pictures and create a funny backstory as to how he got there. He will absolutely be in attendance front row the inauguration in a few days somehow, and I've put out a couple songs in his voice where I played the guitar intentionally shitty, and did a diss track a few months ago. I literally learned how to play guitar decently, so I could intentionally do it slightly off tune, haha. It has been really a good way for me to connect with a lot of my friends in different places I don't see often anymore, and makes me happy. I know it makes them smile. It got to a point where it started to overlap, and I let the hillbilly hell-raising energy carry over into my daily life a bit, and can flip the accent on and off, haha. I work as a sales director leadership position at a software company now that's pretty high stress sometimes, so it's almost like an outlet where I can tune down my IQ a lot and just do stupid shit and not take life so serious. Nothing wrong with bringing a little laughter into people's lives, and I still think it's hilarious making stuff up for it. His slogan is mopping floors, drinking Coors. I bought a C8 Corvette a few years ago and really played into the trailer park Ferrari jokes, haha. But it makes me really happy this stupid ass bit brings laughter to the lives of people I care about a decade later, and I literally cackle when I create stupid ass scenarios and posts for him. I'll go look through them sometimes, and I'm like, how the fuck did I even come up with that? Anyways, I started using his namesake for random things, burner emails, things I don't want to sign up for using my name, referrals for services, etc. Basically, I signed him up for everything I didn't want to, or as an extra account legally that doesn't require a social security number. Old Ricky has a shit ton of Starbucks rewards. That's for damn sure, lol. This was all fun and games until today. My wife and I are currently trying to sell our current home, and we put in an offer that was accepted this morning. When working with a lender today, I have a credit monitoring program, and I called and asked a few verification questions since I have my credit, and one of them came up and asked for known associates, and Ricky, last name, came up, and I was like, what? After looking at my credit report, when my wife and I got married 2 years ago, we ended up renting out her home to this really kind older gentleman who still lives there. However, on not only my credit report but my wife's, it shows Ricky as the tenant and a known associate on background checks and searches. It also shows him as a co-tenant at a corporate apartment I rented 5 years ago at every credit agency. He apparently even shows up in his own background checks minus a social. I'm assuming this is due to data mining shit, but this is specifically problematic because when I brought this up to our lender and said, that's a problem as we intend to keep the rental. Somehow, our actual tenant doesn't even show up for them, and they just see Ricky. That was very difficult to articulate Ricky as someone who doesn't exist, but when have an actual renter who does exist but doesn't show up as a tenant other than the lease documents we have.
History 7.
TIFU by having an itchy butt for 11 months. I had a vasectomy in January of 2024. A few days after the procedure, my butt started itching uncomfortably and unceasingly. At first, I thought it was a side effect of the procedure. Maybe I was reacting to the bandages. Maybe it was the non-stop sitting as I recovered. Or maybe I itched because I didn't shower for a few days post-op. But I recovered and got back into my normal routine, and the itching continued. I tried everything, short of consulting my doctor. It's embarrassing to tell people your butt itches. I started showering twice daily. I outfitted all of my toilets with bidets. I even tried a few different types of creams and ointments. Nothing worked. I googled my symptoms and got a variety of results. Some sites suggested I might have hemorrhoids, pinworms, or some other butt-related ailment. One helpful forum simply said, "This happens when you turn 40. Your butt starts itching. You just have to deal with it." I resigned myself to having an itchy butt for the rest of my life. Then over the holidays, 11 months into my affliction, I was scratching my itchy unmentionables, and I had a thought. When I had my vasectomy, I followed my doctor's instructions and wore some tight briefs for a few days. Those briefs became part of my laundry cycle, and I wore them regularly. Looking at their tag, they were 20% spandex. Turns out, spandex is a pretty common allergy. I threw out the briefs, and the itching stopped within a few days. I'm now itch-free, and I'm never wearing spandex again. I was resigned to the idea that I was going to have an itchy butt for the rest of my life, and now I can live a clear, itch-free life again.
Thank you all for watching. If you are interested, subscribe and watch other videos.